UFC Fight Night Vegas 34, Cannonier versus Gastelum takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with, let's not waste any more time, the early prelim opener of Sasha Palitnikov versus Ramiz Brahimaj. Both guys looking to bounce back after bad losses, especially in the case of Ramiz Brahimaj. He suffered a really bad loss in his last fight to Max Griffin, and it wasn't just the way that he lost, because it got called off. It was an ear injury, but it was the ear injury that occurred that was so bad to see in that fight. His ear was literally hanging off when he lost that fight to Max Griffin. He had some decent wins outside the UFC, probably shouldn't have been in the UFC in the first place, in all honesty. Lost his previous fight before getting accepted into the UFC, lost to Justin Patterson at LFA, bounced back and got a win, then got signed up to the UFC on short notice. Probably needed a little bit more time to really perfect his game before he eventually got taken up to the big leagues. That got shown against Max Griffin. I mean, even Carlos Condit had a close fight with Max Griffin, whereas Ramiz Brahimaj just got destroyed, really, by Max Griffin's range and couldn't really do too much about it, and didn't really show any sort of sign of being able to get things to the ground. Max Griffin's a good fighter, don't get me wrong, but, like, if there was going to be some amazing ground game in Ramiz Brahimaj's game, and he does have some submissions, he would have shown it against Griffin, and at least tried to go for a takedown, or shown some some adeptness in getting the fight to the ground if it wasn't working on the feet. I feel like Sasha Palitnikov is going to get the job done here against Ramiz Brahimaj. He's also coming off a loss, but he's coming off a loss to Impa Kasanganay, who I rate extremely highly. I think Impa Kasanganay can be a legit contender in the welterweight division in a couple of years' time. We'll see how things go. And Sasha Palitnikov also got a big win in his UFC debut against Louis Koshke, I believe it was, by KO in the first round. Great scrap back and forth, showed that he had toughness, showed that he had cardio. He kind of got caught in a bad submission against Impa Kasanganay, where he just sort of gave up his back in a certain position, and Impa Kasanganay sort of pounced for the rear naked choke. It was a very situational, and, like, Impa Kasanganay took advantage of a golden situation. It's not like he was destroying Sasha Palitnikov. He was winning, in my opinion, but it was a good scrap. I'm going to go with Sasha Palitnikov here. Much bigger than Ramiz Brahimaj. I think he's much better as well on the feet, and I think he's got better cardio, and I think he's got decent ground game, even though he did get rear naked choked in his last bout. I'm going to go with Sasha Palitnikov here, winning this fight on the feet at range for 3 straight rounds, getting himself a 30-27 unanimous decision. Moving on up the card, Roosevelt Roberts versus Ignacio Bahamondes. Great names between these two fighters at lightweight. I'm going to go with Roosevelt Roberts here. Ignacio Bahamondes, he seemed to be a little bit purely good because of his massive weight advantage over his opponents and his massive range advantage. He's not going to have that same advantage over a guy in Roosevelt Roberts, who I do believe is quite a good fighter, even though he got submitted by Jim Miller and he's had some tough outings in his career. He's really good, and he shows that against a certain level of opponent, which I believe Ignacio Bahamondes is, which is just not quite good enough to be a legit contender in the lightweight division. Roosevelt Roberts can run through those guys. He's very good, 27 years of age himself, very tall as well. This is not going to be a massive size difference like Ignacio Bahamondes is used to. I just watched back the Ignacio Bahamondes KO on the Contender Series. I mean, what did the fucking guy in front of him expect? He was literally leaning his head straight down with no relevance to, like, defending himself whatsoever. And of course he got front kicked in the face. Don't get me wrong, Ignacio Bahamondes, very good fighter, very good indeed. I just don't know if he's going to really be able to get the job done. The John McDessie fight was very telling. I picked John McDessie to beat Ignacio Bahamondes because I wasn't actually too sold on Ignacio Bahamondes in the first place. He had some good wins in his career, but he's lost a couple of fights that maybe he shouldn't have lost. 3-3 guy, Matt McKeon, got a first round rear naked choke against him. He got first round armbarred by Preston Parsons, who recently went out there and lost to Daniel Rodriguez on short notice, I believe. Yes, he did. That's the guy. Wow. Small MMA world. Either way, I'm going to be going against Ignacio Bahamondes here. I think he's good because of his size, and I think a guy who's his size with his range is going to be able to cause him real issues because he had such a massive reach advantage and a size advantage and a frame advantage in general over John McDessie. And I shit you not, McDessie won the fight because of his jab. That shouldn't be happening. That's a real fundamental issue of range finding with Ignacio Bahamondes. And listen, Roosevelt Roberts can grapple as well. He took down Alexandre Yakovlev, I believe it was, in the lightweight division. It probably wasn't that person. It would probably be another person with a similarly sounding Russian name. I'll find it right now. It might have actually been Alexandre Yakovlev. And it's And he got him down, took him down, worked his grappling game, defended takedowns well. He showed that he's got a decent grappling game in his bag after being kind of exposed by Vinc Pichel, but Vinc Pichel's amazing at grappling, even out-grappled Jim Miller. I'm probably going to be going with, even though he did get clipped by Kevin Croom is shit. It's not good, this one. I'm going to go with Roosevelt Roberts. I think he's actually just technically sound compared to Ignacio Bahamondes, who gets a little bit wild. And when there's fights like this where you don't really know, it's better to go on the fundamentals. And Roosevelt Roberts does things way better fundamentally than Ignacio Bahamondes. So I'm going to trust him to get this one done by unanimous decision. Moving on up the card to another fight, William Knight versus Fabio Cherant. Oh my god. This card is full of fights where it's just like, it's just one of them. You know what I mean? It's just what you're going to go for. I think I'm going to probably go with William Knight here, in all honesty, over Fabio Cherant. Because Fabio Cherant, again, probably shouldn't have been in the UFC in the first place. Decent fighter, don't get me wrong. He had some good wins. I believe over at LFA is where he came from. William Knight coming off that bad loss to Dao and Young, where he kind of got exposed in the grappling. But then again, Fabio Cherant coming off a first round submission loss. Yes, he did get a win at LFA against Myron Dennis. I don't know, lost to Alexa Kamur, got flying lead on the Contender Series. Like, Fabio Cherant is good. I just think William Knight is a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, a little bit better in all areas. I'm going to go with William Knight, way more experienced against better competition as well. I'm going to trust William Knight to get this one done, and I think he'll get it done by maybe TKO in the first or second round. I'll say second round TKO for William Knight. Both guys are going to be explosive in the first, looking to land big punches on each other. I think William Knight will be able to keep that pace a little bit longer than Fabio Cherant will, and I think that'll pay off with a late rounds TKO for William Knight. After the halfway point of the fight, I think he'll get it towards the late second round. Cherant starting to get a little bit tired, drop his hands a little bit. William Knight puts on the pressure and gets a TKO win. Just a little bit more experienced than Fabio Cherant against better competition, in my opinion, and had better showings than Cherant getting immediately Von Flue choked by Alonzo Manyfield. Moving on to another fight on the card, B. Malecki versus Josiane Nunes. Again, I'm going to go B. Malecki here. She's fucking massive. And I don't have much else to say. In all honesty, Josiane Nunes is pretty good. She weighed in at bantamweight before. She is actually a bantamweight, and she has fought at bantamweight before. But she, frame-wise, is not. 67-inch reach, 5'2". You've got a 5'8" B. Malecki here, who's actually 5'9" according to Tapology. 74-inch reach. She's beaten some good opponents in her career. Veronica Macedo. She also beat Duda Santana, that woman that looks like Israel Adesanya. B. Malecki, she beat Duda Santana, who was 3-0 at the time, and a decent fighter, I guess, to be going 3-0 in any way. B. Malecki, taking some time off, I think she'll improve massively. She's just in a case where they're both decently good. Josiane Nunes does have some KO power, and that might just be because she's a Brazilian female with the surname of Nunes, and she's somewhat manly looking. I understand that might be the reason why she has that power. I just think B. Malecki's so much bigger. She's also got power. She's got grappling she can go to, and she's just gonna be about 15 pounds bigger than Josiane Nunes, in my opinion, and it's going to be a real problem for Josiane Nunes. So in a case where both of them are good contenders, and both of them are pretty decent, I'm going to side with the woman who's literally a fucking Goliath compared to her opponent. B. Malecki gets this one done. Moving on up the card, Brian Kelleher versus Domingo Pilarte. I'm going to be going with Brian Kelleher here. Domingo Pilarte, the weight bully of all weight bullies in the UFC. I fucking hate this cunt. And it's nothing to do with my prediction here. I'm not just picking Brian Kelleher because I hate Domingo Pilarte. What a fucking prick. Everyone needs to know about this cunt of a weight bully, and he's chinny because of it as well, and that's going to cause him problems against Kelleher. I'm going to say Kelleher gets a guillotine choke finish in the first round here. I think he's going to catch Domingo Pilarte with his lethal hooks, catch him on the chin. Domingo Pilarte's not going to react too well, fall to the ground, try and get back up, shoot on a single leg to try and get back to his feet, try and get something going in the grappling and get up safely, and I think he'll go straight into a guillotine choke from Brian Kelleher, who gets the job done. Once I get this bit of fucking spinach out of my fucking mouth. We're back. How's it going? I'm going to go with Brian Kelleher here. I think he'll definitely get this one done in the first round by finish. Fuck Domingo Pilarte. He's a weight bully and he's not got a good chin because of it, and his cardio is not the best either. So there's a lot of problems that a guy like Brian Kelleher, who's a tough guy, who's not really too chinny, even though he has been chinned earlier in his career, got chinned by guys like John Lineker, and he's been finished before as well. I just think he's good enough. He's the kind of guy who will beat a kind of guy like Domingo Pilarte. He's a tough veteran who's good in all areas, who can exploit multiple areas, who can work the grappling, who can work the stand-up as well. He's got knockout power, submission ability. There's so many ways that Domingo Pilarte can go wrong here, and he does go wrong a lot in his fights, even if he likes it or not, because of that chin, who's going to be a real problem, because he's massive for the division. I think Brian Kelleher gets a guillotine choke here. Rocks Domingo Pilarte. Pilarte shoots to cover distance, become a little bit safer, puts him right into a guillotine choke while he's semi-conscious. Kelleher puts him out in the first round. Moving on up the card to another good fight, which is Austin Lingo versus Luis Saldana. Man. What the fuck is that in my mouth? Jesus Christ. Anyway, I'm spawning new entities in my fucking mouth. Austin Lingo versus Luis Saldana. Good scrap. I'm going to go with Austin Lingo here as an underdog, in all honesty. I think he's well-rounded. He's got good cardio. He's got good grappling. He's got a good chin. He's got good stand-up. Luis Saldana, to me, red flags all over the place as a contender, in all honesty. He's the older guy here as well. I'm taking Austin Lingo here as an underdog. I think it makes sense. It might be close in odds, but Luis Saldana, in my opinion, 15-6. He has lost a lot of fights in his career, and not to mention in his last fight against Jordan Griffin. He's very lucky to get that decision win over Jordan Griffin, because arguably Jordan Griffin could have won that one, and Luis Saldana showed a terrible, terrible lack of takedown defense. I'm talking Kevin Holland levels, where it's like, you just aren't doing basic, correct things to defend these takedowns. And then you start looking throughout Luis Saldana's career and you start realizing, hold on a second, you got beaten by Mike Santiago, 17-9. You got beaten by Alex Wiggs Jr., who's 3-2. I don't even know who Alex Wiggs is. Don't you dare call your child a junior if we don't even know who you are as a father. Even still, Anthony Backham, 7-4. Damian Childress, 1-1. It just reeks of a guy who has a little bit of a problem, and regardless of the level of opponent, if they can do that thing and make him maybe grind out and take him down and work him on the ground, they can kind of get the better of him. Justin Lawrence, 4-2 at the time. Tom Aarons, 12-12 at the time. Got a first round rear naked choke. Like, it's just, I think there's a game plan for victory. And I think Austin Lingo, 8-1. Good chin. Good record. Good opponents beaten. He has experience against Yusuf Zalal, who he lost to, by the way. But that's Yusuf Zalal. He's somewhat good, I guess. Very fundamentally sound. Solo Hatley Jr., who's a good opponent. 6-1. He got a KO against him in the first round. A rear naked choke in the first round. A TKO in the first round. A guillotine choke in the first round. He can work the ground game. Got a lot of submissions. Used his grappling against Jacob Kilburn as well. And actually showed a great amount of grappling defense against Jacob Kilburn, who I believe tried to take him down about 18 times. But Austin Lingo refused to go to the ground, eventually shooting on Jacob Kilburn and getting him on the ground and working him a little bit there. Showing that amount of takedown defense and the grappling offense that he has, I think he's going to be able to go out there and beat a guy like Luis Saldana, who in my opinion is just a fucking red flag machine at this point. There's so many... If he becomes like a legit contender, it's like a fucking fairy tale, in all honesty. He is showing signs where it's like, you're going to get really badly exposed soon. And I'm going to go with Austin Lingo. I trust him to get an upset win here. I don't know why people are so high on Luis Saldana after his last performance. Wasn't the best in the world, but good fighter. I'm just going to go with Austin Lingo, being a bit more well-rounded and exploiting some holes in Luis Saldana's game. Moving on up the card to the main card of this fight night. Alexandre Pantoja versus Brandon Royval. I'm going to go Alexandre Pantoja by first round KO. I know there's some Royval fans out there, okay? Royval, I know about it. He's got a little bit of a fan base going because he's so entertaining in the way he fights. He's so sporadic, so crazy. Pantoja's got power in his shots sometimes. He can KO the guys like Matt Schnell. He has got a real wicked amount of power in his shots. I can see him catching Royval doing some crazy shit. Like, Royval's going to lift one knee up, trying to fake something and go for a head kick maybe and just get clipped on the chin. Rocks pretty badly. I reckon I'm going to go with an Alexandre Pantoja TKO. TKO? I'll say rear naked choke. I think he'll hurt him with a punch. put him down, Royval will be on the ground, and Pantoja will jump on the opportunity, sink in the hooks, get the back, put in a rear naked choke, like he did against Brandon Moreno, by the way. Could this be another Brando on the legacy of Alexandre Pantoja? Who knows? Another Brandon, sorry. I'm going to go with Alexandre Pantoja here. I think he's too experienced. He's very powerful. He's got the ability to finish things early. He's way shorter and only with a half-inch reach disadvantage. 5'8" Brandon Royval, 5'4" Alexandre Pantoja. Fighters who don't have much of a reach disadvantage or even have an advantage in reach whilst being shorter are a very tricky type of fighter to be able to beat. We see this with Alexander Volkanovski. We see this with a lot of shorter guys who have a bit of a reach advantage over their opponents. They're so difficult to beat if you can't keep them at range, and you can't keep them at range because of their reach for their size is pretty ridiculous. I'm going to go with Alexandre Pantoja here. Way more experienced. Got a good chin, got good cardio. We're not finding things out about Alexandre Pantoja in the middle of these fights. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm putting money on someone, I'm putting it on Pantoja because we still don't really know all of the crevices of Royval's game, where he's good, where he's not. There's still some kind of like, what happens if we end up in this position with Brandon Royval? Whereas against Alexandre Pantoja, Pantoja doesn't have those worries and concerns. We know he's pretty good everywhere, but he just might be just a tad under the top level guys in the division. He beat Brandon Moreno, I believe twice as well, by the way, but finished him on the Ultimate Fighter, which obviously doesn't count because it's an exhibition match. But he also barely lost to Askar Askarov in a razor close fight. Barely lost to Davison Figueiredo in a good scrap. Figueiredo beat the shit out of him a little bit, but he stayed competitive the whole way through, had his moments here and there. I'm going to go with Alexandre Pantoja here, getting a first round finish over Royval. Moving on up the card, Vinc Pichel versus Austin Hubbard. I'm going to go with Austin Hubbard over Vinc Pichel, in all honesty. Vinc Pichel's very good. He's got good grappling. What's the one thing that Austin Hubbard does really well compared to Vinc Pichel, in my opinion? Takedown defense. Volume striking on the feet. I'm going to take Austin Hubbard as an underdog here. I love a bit of an Austin Hubbard underdog. One of my favourite underdogs to go for is a bit of Austin Hubbard. Not a lot of people are picking him. 23% of people, of everyone on Tapology, are picking Austin Hubbard. So maybe I'm a little bit off here. But I'm going to go with Austin Hubbard here, no? Vinc Pichel, 38 years of age, only getting older. He's been out for an entire year. Austin Hubbard, looking pretty good. Beat Dakota Bush. Lost to Joe Malecki, who's a great grappler. Managed to just pounce on the opportunity of a rear naked choke early on in the fight. Did very well against Max Roshkov, got taken down but worked his way back up multiple times, which made Max Roshkov completely gas out and get beaten up as the fight went on. Even against Marco Madsen, who's also on this card, Austin Hubbard showed a real ability to be able to stuff some of those takedowns. Eventually in the third round, starting to beat the shit out of Marco Madsen as well. Didn't get submitted on the ground to Davy Ramos. Could Vinc Pichel go out there and work a bit of a grappling clinic? Maybe. I'm going to bet the old man maybe slows down as this fight goes on and we can see a 29-28 decision for Austin Hubbard in the second and third round, and maybe with a bit of a third round beating as well. Could maybe see a 29-27. I'm going to go with Austin Hubbard here. Maybe getting taken down in the first round, landing some shots off of his back and just scrambling enough to make Vinc Pichel need to work to keep top position. And then after that, I think Vinc Pichel, the takedowns are going to get a little bit less, and I think there's going to be some problems. I'm going to go with Austin Hubbard here, and plus Elevation Fight Team. Doing pretty good right now. I'm going to trust in Austin Hubbard to make the improvements necessary. Still a young guy, 29 years of age compared to the 38 of Vinc Pichel. I think the youth will show here and he'll be able to win in the later rounds. 2 and 3, Austin Hubbard. Moving on up the card. Mano Martinez versus Trevin Jones. I'm going to go Trevin Jones by KO here. I think it's just a trustworthy pick for Trevin Jones. He's very, very good, and he's tough as well, Trevin Jones. The beating that he took against Timur Valiev, I know he won that fight eventually anyway, but it got overturned to a no contest. But he showed that he can take a real beating and still find that one moment where he can land that shot. The fight with Mario Batista, very close fight for Trevin Jones, but he finds that one shot straight on the chin with the lead hook. I'm going to go with Trevin Jones getting a big KO here against Mano Martinez. Mano Martinez, decent guy, 8-2 record. Not just some random bum that shouldn't even be in the UFC. Maybe you could argue he could have been in the UFC anyway. But Mano Martinez, in my opinion, just isn't quite good enough to beat a guy like Trevin Jones. He is on a 2-fight win streak. The competition that he's taking on, some of them are good. Lost to Draco Rodriguez by triangle choke in the first round. Draco Rodriguez now 0-2 in the UFC. Not looking like a good loss in hindsight. I'm going to, you know what? Mano Martinez, he's a bit of a scrapper. He goes out there looking for quick finishes. I think that'll be his downfall. on short notice, he's going to go out there, especially looking for a quick finish as well, because he just signed this fight, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, but he was signed to fight Jesse Strader before that as well. Both opponents fell out. They made this fight on short notice. I think he's going to try and get this one done early, and I think that's going to be his downfall, because Jones, in my opinion, a little bit faster, a little bit more explosive, a little bit more power. I think he's going to crack an over-aggressive Manny Martinez in the first round and get a TKO win, maybe with a check hook or something like that. Moving on up the card. Feature fight. The feature fight of the card. Oh my god. Parker Porter versus Chase Sherman. Holy shit. The feature fight of... Okay, I'm going to go with... I'm going to go Chase Sherman. Good cardio. He's a massive guy for the heavyweight division. Much bigger than Parker Porter. Parker Porter showed that he's somewhat adept. Coming off a KO loss, though. He has had some damaging fights as well. Not coming off a KO loss, but coming off a very damaging loss. Or a win, sorry. He beat Josh Parisian, didn't he? Oh my god, he did win that one, but very sloppy looking. Wasn't the best looking fight in all honesty, but he ended up getting that one done. Chris Dalkaus did TKO him though. I'm going to be going with Chase Sherman here, even though Parker Porter is somewhat okay and showed that he's somewhat decent against Josh Parisian. Parisian's not the best fighter in the world himself, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to go with Chase Sherman. I trust him to get this win. He's big, he's tall, he can push a good pace. He kind of got picked apart by Arlovski, but I think Parker Porter would suffer the same fate to Arlovski as well. He's got a reach advantage, Chase Sherman. Younger guy, in his prime still looking to make a career for himself. I'm going to go with Chase Sherman getting a TKO here against Parker Porter, probably with elbows against a cage, against a shorter opponent in Parker Porter. Chase Sherman gets it done by TKO. Moving on up the card. Clay Guida versus Mark Madsen. Clay Guida, the fucker. Always a tempting pick, old Clay Guida. I'm not doing it, though. I think he's going to beat the shit out of Mark Madsen in the third round. I can see a 29-28 Mark Madsen here. First two rounds, Mark Madsen goes out there, looks okay on the feet, nothing too crazy. Guida and him get a little bit scrappy, both guys landing some decent shots. Towards the end of the first and second round, I think Madsen's going to shoot for his takedown. I believe he will get the takedown against Clay Guida. Mark Madsen, Olympic-level wrestling guy. He doesn't have the best cardio. He is a little bit older, but he's new in his career. He took a little bit of damage against Austin Hubbard, but he's took some time off. I assume to make some adjustments in his game as well. He's got a bit of a reach advantage. He's going to be a little bit bigger than Clay Guida. I'm going to think that Mark Madsen gets the better of the grappling exchanges in the first two rounds, enough to win him those rounds. 2 rounds to Mark Madsen. The third round comes around. Mark Madsen tries to shoot again, maybe fails a couple of takedowns. Clay Guida starts to get some momentum, starts chasing down Mark Madsen at the end of the third round, the last 2 minutes. Not enough for a 10-8 round, but I think Clay Guida's going to come on strong, just not enough, and I think Mark Madsen gets it done, 29-28 unanimous decision. Moving on to the main event, Jared Cannonier versus Kelvin Gastelum. I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier by TKO. I'm doing it. I don't care what anyone says about, oh, Gastelum's got an iron jaw. You always pick Gastelum to lose by TKO and it never happens. I understand, and maybe I am wrong, and maybe that's a good point. Maybe you shouldn't listen to any of my fucking picks, even though I'm majority of the time very correct. Jared Cannonier, Kelvin Gastelum. I'm going to go with Cannonier. You want to know why? I don't care how good your chin is if your legs are fucking destroyed. Cannonier's got vicious leg kicks. We saw them against Whittaker. We've seen them against many opponents, but mainly against Whittaker. It looked like a new thing that he's added into his game that was way better than we've seen it before. Shattered Anderson Silva's leg as well with some brutal leg kicks. Gastelum's not a big guy. He doesn't have 2 big legs. He's not like got Whittaker's fucking thighs and calf muscles, because he's just ridiculously built in the lower half of his body. Very dense shins and thigh muscles for Robert Whittaker. I don't think Kelvin Gastelum has that same support structure for his legs, and he fucking steps so heavy on his lead leg sometimes, it's a little bit of a problem. I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier by TKO. Leg kicks, I think, will chop down Kelvin Gastelum, working pretty badly. Then Kelvin Gastelum's going to get a little bit desperate, start lunging for some shots. He won't have his legs under him at the time either, because they're pretty bad. They haven't really got him supported anymore, and I think he's just not going to have his legs under him to take the shots. And I think Jared Cannonier, with the power that he has, is going to catch Kelvin Gastelum coming in with like a slip away, see Gastelum overextend with a right hand, and then just blast a fucking straight right hand down the pipe on Gastelum's chin. He's also got a 6-inch reach advantage over Kelvin Gastelum. I think that's going to be the story of the fight. Jared Cannonier just kicking the shit out of Gastelum's legs in the first round. At the start of the second round as well. Then towards the end of the second round, Kelvin's going to realise if I lose this one, I've got to win the next 3 to get this one done, and my legs are kind of destroyed. I kind of need this round right now. He's going to go after Cannonier, look to get something back at the end of the second round. Cannonier moves out of the way, blasts a straight right hand on the chin of Gastelum. I just don't like the amount of damage Gastelum has taken in his fights recently. Eventually your chin goes. It doesn't matter who you are. You will get cracked on that chin eventually. I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier getting this one done on a fucking destroyed-legged Gastelum, in my opinion. Gastelum also, he's such a quick turnaround. Whittaker isn't back in there yet. Why are you back in there on short notice, dude? I kind of feel like Gastelum is playing a bit of a game of a show money Easter egg hunt. He's just fucking wandering around the UFC PI. As soon as they say there's a fight, he's like, I'll take some show money. It's weird to me. Very weirdly managed career, but whatever. I'm going to go with Jared Cannonier by TKO. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.